During the time of slavery, in the free North, black people were marginalized. The North was notoriously racist and bigoted towards black people. I don't know if people forget about this or they don't know about this, but it's like, well, most of our information about black people and about the South is coming from racist, bigoted people. Do you understand that? They would attack black communities, they would attack black churches, black schools, they would try to stop black people from going to school, trying to stop black people from voting, have sundown towns. There were so many problems that black people had in the North, but yet it gets ignored. Historians mention it every now and then, but it was there. I don't understand how people don't understand that. The free system was a huge problem for us. Like, look at Black Wall Street, for crying out loud. Black Wall Street was in the free system. What happened? Hundreds of black people murdered, community completely destroyed. Did any Caucasian get arrested? No. No, that's the free system. It's supposed to be better than slavery, right? But if they did that to a slave community, all those Caucasians would have been rounded up and executed because they destroyed a massive amount of property. Slaves were property, right? And property is valuable. So when Harriet Tubman freed the slaves, she took off the property status. Now, black people are not as valuable anymore. As a result, they could do whatever they want. And look what they did to Black Wall Street. You understand? And then all the lynchings that happened. You think that they could do that under the slave system? There's no way a slave could go to the market and all of a sudden get lynched and the slave owner is not going to get involved. The slave owner is going to want to interview all those people in lynch mob photos, every last one of them, and find out who did this and make sure that it never happens again. So black people would get justice under the slave system, not the free system. That's what you have to understand. We were property. Property is valuable. Only a fool destroys their property. I don't know about you, but if I have property and I value it, I'm going to protect it. And the slaves were huge amount of the plantation, so they were property and you value your property. Yes, there were some slave owners that abused their property. Yes, it's just like parents now, right? Like, I would consider my child my property. Nobody touches my property. That's my property. Okay, until they turn 18 and stuff like that. So why wouldn't you protect your property? But there are some parents out there that will, they would damage their property. They would, mess up their kids, like beat them emotionally or physically. You understand? There are some parents out there, but most parents don't do that. Well, that's how it was for the slave owners. Okay, most of the slave owners, they wouldn't harm the slaves. What makes you think that, black people would allow themselves to be butchered on a daily basis, their women constantly raped, their families constantly taken away from them, and not burn down the South themselves? We were cooking for these people. We were taking care of their children. We were a huge part of the plantation. We were in family photos, for crying out loud. But yet, we couldn't do anything. We had to wait for Caucasians to come down and rescue us. Wait a minute, where did I hear that story before? Oh yes, Caucasians going to Africa to save us from the barbarism of Africa. Right? And bring us to a civilized world. They're not going to do anything if it benefits us. You think getting out of slavery benefited us? Like, people don't understand the concept of slavery. Now, I'm going to explain it. It civilized you before you got into the free system. That's what it was about. Okay, so imagine Caucasians and Negroes under slavery. When they get out, they're civilized, so they could interact with each other better. There's no racism, there's no misogyny, there's no homophobia. It's breeded out of you, right? Because you're supposed to be a civilized individual when you get into the free system. And as a result, there's harmony. But if you bypass it, which the Caucasians, they wanted to bypass it because they didn't like slavery, they bypassed it. Now you have ignorant, degenerate people in the free system getting to positions of power and causing problems for people that they don't like. Do you understand how that's a problem? And we've seen the problem. So if Caucasians were under slavery, once they get out, they're civilized and they'll act properly. That's what you have to understand. That's why slavery was around for such a long time, because it civilized you before you got into the free system. And when we got out of slavery, black people were very skilled. Very skilled. We were more skilled on average than Caucasians. Okay, and education doesn't necessarily mean reading and writing. It's also being able to survive, make stuff. You could learn how to be like an electrician without reading and writing. You just need like experience. You understand? But of course, you need reading and writing. And I suspect that the only way they became free is if they did know how to read and write. Because you have to understand, there's a lot of information about slavery that they're not telling us. They're not telling us. These are the same people that would say that Egypt, ancient Egypt, has nothing to do with us. In Africa, ancient Egypt has nothing to do with us. Okay? Basically, anything that's in Africa, oh, that's someone else that did that. That's amazing in Africa, someone else did that. Do you understand the games that they play? But yet somehow we're believing their narrative of racist, bigoted people. What sense does that make?